Welcome to Business Outlook, a podcast by the Albuquerque Journal where we focus on 4 revolving themes: real estate, small business, emerging leaders, and technology.
CNM is truly one college with infinite possibilities in tech and data sciences. CNM offers programs where everyone can learn about software, apps, or how to build websites. You can also choose from AI programs and machine learning, the Internet of Things, and so much more. CNM, one college, infinite possibilities, and a proud sponsor of the Albuquerque Journal's Business Outlook.
Hi, welcome back to the Business Outlook podcast by the Albuquerque Journal. I'm Ryan Boetel, and today's podcast is on real estate, and my guests are Adam and David Silverman from Geltmore LLC. Adam and David, thanks for coming on, guys.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
And your dad was here last week kind of talking about the origins of the company. You know, I've been so hard at work, I haven't even changed clothes in the last 7 days. But one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about was downtown Albuquerque. I write about downtown a lot. I'm kind of a downtown guy. I live in the Imperial Building, which you guys know a lot about. Tell me about you guys, your ties to downtown and some of the big projects that you've been involved in.
Yeah, you bet. So our father, throughout the 90s, was involved in many of the city efforts to, change downtown. It was in the 70s, it was gutted with urban renewal when the department stores left downtown to move to Uptown into Windrock and Coronado. The main street of Central Avenue was totally gutted. And so, however many administrations went by, and I think in the 90s, Paul got very involved in trying to help revitalize it, bring a grocery store down there. And, it had its fits and starts, but, a grocery store never happened down there. I think got the theater block done, which, he was a contributor for and, helped the way he could. And so when I moved back in 2012, literally the first week I came back, the city Metropolitan Redevelopment Department issued a RFP for a development on land that they owned at 2nd and Silver for the purposes of a grocery store and other uses. And so he was like, let's give this a shot. So, and I didn't know anything. I was like, sure, let's do that. So we did. And, we went through the whole thing, we figured it out. And it's a very long story, but it got done with the support and co-development of Yes Housing. And, now it's a pretty keystone piece of our downtown.
Exactly, and that's the Imperial Building. I'm on the top floor. I shop at the grocery store every day. I mean, I think that building really did change that part of downtown, giving people a grocery store. There's currently a pharmacy there. I don't know if but I mean, those were things that, downtown residents would really have to leave their home areas for in order to shop, get prescription drugs. And then it's also an affordable, there's affordable housing units within the condo, or within the apartments. So it really did change that area.
Yeah, I mean, it was supposed to be a catalyst for more residential development to come to the core and allowing people the ability to not have to leave, the center of the city to go get their daily needs was the whole point of it. So, the affordable housing element was I think really important, but it was also one of the only ways that the project could be financed, in a submarket where, there aren't market forces don't dictate, it's kind of a depressed market economically because of, its circumstances with the real estate, lower rents, higher vacancy, it's got its issues. So the only way to get that done was with low-income housing tax credits, which is where Yes Housing came in. And there was some other physical issues with the land itself, but that's a longer story. There's
some other things, and you had to put together some incentives because your dad talked about how you guys at Geltmore have a formula that you follow in order to ensure success.
He told you the rules then.
Yeah,
huh?
I guess he gave away his secret. So
he can give you the Ferrari, but you still have to know how to drive it.
Sure.
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that kind of made it more complicated to hit your formula and hit your numbers.
A little bit. It's interesting. I mean, he gave you those rules, which I think he knew subconsciously in his own head, but it took, in 2012, we didn't really know them. We hadn't articulated them. We hadn't really put them out on paper. It was only when Adam, started working with us a few years later and we started going through this together that it was, we had to dumb it down.
It's my fault.
It was good, it was good for all of us, but we really had to make it so simple that we could all, subscribe to the same formula. And that was when we came up with the rules, and, it took a little bit of time, and then it was like, wow, that's so obvious. Of course those are rules. So.
Yeah.
Did my dad tell you that I have the history degree of the family and not the business degree?
Yes.
There we go.
We went
okay,
over that,
got it.
yeah.
All right, perfect.
So why do you, because your offices are downtown too, you've done other downtown projects that we're going to talk about. Why is it important to have for a city to have a downtown core?
Yeah, that's so key. I'll take it, Dave. So David moved back in 2012. I was still living in Southern California at the time, and he had just moved from San Diego. But we've had the opportunity all of our lives to travel. My dad loves travel. He loves going and seeing other cities. He loves exploring other cities, and he doesn't do it by car. He always has to do it by mass transit or walking. And so at a very young age, we got accustomed to riding the subways and the bus systems. And, we didn't know we were learning real estate at the time, but we did. But David and I growing up, we always came downtown. My dad has his office downtown. We lived in the Northeast Heights. And so downtown was a place that we always were. So moving away, we realized, okay, well, gosh, all these other cities that we've been to have these wonderful downtowns. And so once David came back and he started working on the downtown project, we realized, hey, look, if we really want to help change our city, right, we really need to help change our downtown. And so that all started with the Imperial Building that we just talked about. That finished in 2016. We decided, okay, look, if we're going to walk the walk, we're going to talk the talk. Or talk the talk, walk the walk, excuse me. So we bought a building. We moved our offices downtown and moved in 2017. I moved to downtown with my wife and my kids, and shortly thereafter, David was already living downtown, and then eventually we convinced my dad he needed to move downtown too. So now we're all living downtown. So we're all downtowners with you. But the way we see these other cities in our region, you can always tell, right? When you have someone come in from out of town and, you want to take them somewhere, right? 9 times out of 10, you want to go to the place where there's the most activity, hospitality, restaurants, all the things that we love, about going and visiting other places. And in Albuquerque, that's very segmented. It's all over. And our walkability in our town isn't very good. And so when you go to a place, you don't want to rent a car. You want to see it. You want to experience it. And so we see downtown as the heart of our city. And without our heart beating regularly, right, how are we going to be a thriving city? And it's really amazing. We haven't had a skyscraper built in over 4 decades in our downtown.
Yeah, that's wild. And right now, I think just being a downtowner's, the probably the most hopping place, I think, is the new Exnovo Tap Room. I mean, it's a beautiful building. What you guys know about that project?
Just a tad, yeah. We were the developers on that project, and what a fun project that was. It was so many different challenges. When I moved back to Albuquerque in 2015, one of the things I immediately noticed, we didn't have any chef-driven concepts. And so as I started to research why don't we have chef-driven concepts? Well, liquor licensing is really expensive, or it was up until maybe the pandemic. And so when you think about how you run a restaurant and how these people make their money, a significant portion of the income that you make in a restaurant comes off of alcohol sales. And so we started to really try to understand how do we create that culture, and how do we help these entrepreneurs that are in that hospitality space grow their businesses. And my brother actually had a relationship with the family, Joel and James Gregory, who own Exnovo. And Joel was moving back from Portland. He wanted to raise his family in New Mexico. And when he came back to town, David and I went and had beers at their new Corrales location, and they just opened the brewery. And, we were like, Joel, this is amazing. But we really need to do something in Albuquerque. And Joel said, look, I'm interested, but I'm not moving into one of your shopping centers. It needs to be something cool, and it needs to be something with a vibe. Well, fast forward to 2020 in February, and David drives by the Firestone building at the corner of 7th and Central, and it's closed. And we were like, whoa, that thing is really neat. It's on Route 66. It just oozes authenticity. But boy, does it look like an automotive facility. Yeah. And so amazingly enough, a month later, we have COVID hit. We researched who the ownership was, and we just started to dive in. I mean, that's really the only way you can do real estate is you have to pour yourself into it and figure out all the pieces. So after working through the ownership and going through a bunch of stuff during the pandemic, we were finally able to get it under contract in 2002, only to find out there was a groundwater contamination issue that we had to deal with. So we spent about 18 months working with the New Mexico Environmental Department, who was lovely, through a voluntary remediation program. And we mitigated all the environmental issues. And Joel and his team at Exnovo were with us all the way. And, they said, look, this is our vision and we want to complete our vision. And of course, when we put it all on paper, as one of our rules says, we had what we thought were pretty good numbers. And then we sort of got hit with that little thing called inflation that happened back in 2001 to about 2003. So we raised some money from local stakeholders, local Albuquerque, New Mexico people, who believed in downtown and believed in us and believed in Exnovo. And after about 3 years of hard work, we finally opened the unit August 9th to the public. And it's just been a great outpouring from not only the downtown community, but everybody in Albuquerque. I mean, it's still kind of fun to hear people say, wait a minute, there's an Exnovo downtown? Like, oh, I need to come check that out.
Yeah. And for people who might not have been there and don't know what it looks like, I'm kind of envisioning it now after thinking about the rules that your dad talked about last week. Never hurry being one of them. I mean, otherwise you'll make a mistake. And also just having that vision. And if you haven't been to the Exnovo, like it's a beautiful interior and it opens up to a big, huge patio that has a great view of Central, including that like key part of Central where like the lowriders turn around on Sundays. It's just very much in the heart. And it's also kind of at an end that wasn't in the middle of downtown. It's kind of towards the end of the blocks. I mean, it does kind of have all those elements that you guys strive for as commercial real estate pros.
It really does. We are while we look at things. We look at things a little bit differently. Maybe my dad spoke about it, but you always have to envision what's not there today and maybe what that piece of real estate could be in the future. And I think David, Joel, and I and Paul understood what that corner could be. But we were completely respectful that we weren't the first people on that block. The lowriders have been doing that little thing organically for many years before. So we were able to reach out to a lot of stakeholders in the community. We realized that there's no family-friendly dining in downtown, especially not with the patio, especially not on Route 66. And with the uniqueness of some of the zoning and some of the other things that are in downtown, there's no parking requirements. And so we immediately realized that, hey, look, we can turn this whole parking lot that the Firestone used into this unbelievably neat patio that's right on Route 66. And as part of what I said earlier, we ran into that little budget problem. And so we actually work with the state finance authority, New Mexico Finance Authority, to help us achieve a new market tax credit loan to help us fund some of those projects. Because actually downtown, there's many things and many tools in the toolbox for developers to use to help make downtown better. And
how important is it for downtown that we have entertainment that's not getting shit canned?
Oh gosh, it's extremely important. If you go to other cities, especially in the Southwest region, we're really moving away from this idea that, hey, downtown's this place where people go out, from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., and just totally go wild, right? And we've got no downtown per se that's like an 18-hour downtown. And so our vision is really, how do we make Albuquerque's downtown 18 hours, right? Yeah. And we've always heard from friends who fly in on late flights. They're like, well, where do I eat? I got in at 9 o'clock. Yeah. And a lot of restaurants aren't open that late. So it's imperative that we make our downtown family friendly. It's not clearly focused on, just bars. We need to have restaurants. We need to have retail spaces. We need to have office. We need to have residential. And you have to do all that stuff cumulatively. Everything has to happen, at the same, not necessarily at the same time, but together.
And I think there's been a lot of businesses down there for years, and a lot of people have, put their livelihoods into a lot of businesses that are down there for a long time. And I think they deserve some credit for having been there long enough. Definitely. And, support being so challenging to provide. And so, Exnovo is a important part of it all. And, it's just, to do anything, today, it just requires a whole lot of capital. And so we were able to, help bring that to a very key intersection of downtown. But right adjacent to us is the Arrive Hotel, which is going to open next year. Those guys are investing, a significant amount of money into that, into downtown, which will be a great anchor I think they're doing some stuff to try to promote the downtown growers market across the street. And so, it's really building, a strong cornerstone at that end. But the entertainment piece, like you said, I think is critical. I mean, guys like Joe Anderson and others have been doing concerts down there for a long time. But, I think maybe we're ready for, the next iteration of that. I think that would help bring people down there.
Yeah, it was actually brought to my attention recently that Tucson, of all places, is like the number 7 music city in the country. Well, yeah. I think Albuquerque is way cooler than Tucson, weather-wise and vibe-wise. And so one of the pieces that we're missing in downtown is a really great small live venue. We have some nice venues, but they still haven't had enough capital investment to make them feel like we're competing with some of our regional competitors. Sure. So I think that one thing I would like to see in the future is we find our anchor for downtown, right? We're missing some anchors, and we have some ideas on how to fix that, but live music needs to be in that discussion.
Yeah. And I mean, because it's our neighborhood, we're talking about exciting things and just revitalization that's happening. Downtown also has some problems, right? I mean, there's a huge unhoused population. There's little fentanyl boils everywhere. There's broken windows. What do we need to do just as a city to kind of make some changes to sort of help people like you create exciting things downtown?
That's a tough one, man. We're just real estate guys.
We're just real estate guys.
We try to contribute where we can with our expertise. It's really a community driven solution. I think all the gateway solutions, I think there's multiple of them, that are being deployed around the city beyond just the large old hospital on Gibson. I think there's others planned, which I think will really help. But, we don't have a solution to that. Ours is, what we can do is when something gets broken, we repair it. The broken windows theory, like you can't let it, it stings and you got to pay for it, but you just got to fix it and move on and be a part of the conversation and be a part of the solution and not, shouting from the sidelines that, this isn't great. Like, we're all in this together. So we gotta work our way out of it together.
Yeah. Yeah. And to expand on that, it is a community driven solution, and we need good stewards, right? We need the people that own the real estate, to remember that, hey, look, like not only do you own it, not only do you get the benefit from the income of the property you own, but you also need to be active in those solution discussions, right? You can't always come with the problems. You need to come with some solutions. One of the solutions that we've talked about internally, that Paul has also been a part of those discussions is density. Density is really key. And, we have a major affordable housing crisis going on right now. And so a lot of the residential that's been brought in over the last, say, 10 years has been a lot of low income or workforce housing. And now we're starting to turn a tide. I think we've got some market rate projects that could potentially be on the horizon. And as you get that mix of incomes in downtown, and as you bring more people in, those people walking around, walking to bars, walking to restaurants, walking to work, walking to the convention center, they can see all these things. And so you put more eyes on the problem, right? And it really helped to alert, the people that are out there, ACS, APD, the city council, the administration, they're all part of the solution. They've all been working, in conjunction. And I don't want to get too over my skis on this one, but downtown has a perception problem. I live down there. I work down there every day. I see what you see, Ryan, but I also know all the great things that are going on. And so we sometimes focus on the 10% that we see, right? And complain about that 10, but we don't really accentuate the 90% of all the great things that are going on down there.
Okay. Because we weren't just here today to have fun on our podcast. You guys also had some news that you wanted to break about another big project that you got going on downtown.
Oh man, Ryan, I knew you were going to hit me with this one. We're really excited. We're continuously looking for opportunities, not only in Albuquerque, but around the state. But a project that we've been near and dear to our heart that we've actually been working on for about 2 years now, that we were able to get under contract in maybe June or July of this year, was the property at 200 Lomas. And everybody in town, you may not know where 200 Lomas is, but you know that there's a big green building in downtown that gets lit up at night that says Wells Fargo on the top. That's 200 Lomas. So, happy to announce we have the property under contract. We've spent a lot of time and a lot of money going through some feasibility studies over the last 18 months, and we're going to convert all 150,000 square feet. Well, excuse me. We're going to convert, the building is 150,000 feet. We're going to convert floors 2 through 13 to workforce housing, and the ground floor is going to be a retail mixed-use development. So we plan for Wells Fargo is going to maintain a branch in their presence in New Mexico. We're going to have some office space, and then we've got a spot reserved for hopefully a local restaurant operator that we've been talking to for a corner of that ground floor. Okay, well, that's a big project. That's a lot of, more housing that we just talked about, why you need more people leaving downtown. What's workforce housing? In our world, we use workforce housing and affordable housing as a synonymous term, and so there's a little bit of a difference. But when I'm talking about Wells Fargo, we're looking at 4% low income housing tax credit project, and that is a project that relates to the average median income of the county. Right now, the average median in the county is about $69,000. And so people that can qualify to live there will need to make between 80 and 100% of the average median income in our county. And what we see that is maybe first year teachers, first responders, nurses, maybe even the kids that are getting out of law school that need to work by the courthouses. Sure. And so, we see this as a new way to create life in what right now is pretty much a sleepy corner of downtown. Sure, for sure.
And it kind of goes back to, being able to do development, you've got to identify, your sources of financing. Like right now, with construction pricing being where it is, to just do it on a straight conventional basis where you go get a bank loan and market rents prevail, you're probably not going to be able to get the rents to, be able to sustain the costs. And so using some of these tools, low-income housing tax credits and other things, helps to be able to support, development of this scope with costs the way they are. And so downtown has some advantages in the way of being a qualified census tract, which is important in the low-income housing tax credit financing piece. So that's one of it. But ultimately, we need all the affordable housing that we can get. But as Adam mentioned earlier, to have a diverse place and a diverse urban core, you need all different types of housing. So, to have market rate apartments and, for sale condos and other things coming down the road is certainly, something we should be, pointing our north, our compass towards. All right. Well, yeah, that sounds like a great project. And hopefully the music scene in downtown can improve at some point. We all love live music. And David, you have, you're involved in a downtown music project, right? So I am. Yeah. We, some friends of mine, there was 5 of us in, it was 2017, had some friends that, were wondering, the festival scene was growing at that point in time. And we all kind of wondered, well, why don't we have something like that in Albuquerque? And so some friends got together and we started a thing called Somos ABQ. And we had a street fest in September of 2017. And it was wildly successful. On the ground, we had a great turnout. I was there. I just didn't know anybody who was involved in it. Yeah. I think everybody was there because we didn't, a lot of people just walked in because we only had one corner to sell tickets. So we learned our lesson from that. But, we're growing. Our research and development. Yeah, exactly. But really what we wanted to do was create a pride of place for young people, young professionals, and young families to, have this festival as like an anchor point as to why, why we all do love this place and why we are special. It was like a love letter to Albuquerque. So we did a few more after that, and ultimately I did a very successful event in 2019 on Civic Plaza, which was great. And then the pandemic hit, and so coming out of that has been a challenge to recreate what we did. But we're actually very excited that we're going to have another one next year, May 10th, 2025, at a location very close to downtown, which we'll be excited to announce in a few months. But it's been a labor of love, and we've got some really great people who've poured their heart into it, and it's a special thing. Yeah. Well, guys, thanks a lot for coming in and talking about your vision and the work that you've done in downtown. I guess to close out maybe we can just do it kind of a rapid fire round in 60 seconds or less. If you're successful, what does downtown look like in 10 years? Oof, loaded questions. Dave, you want that one first? Or you want me to take it? I think, by the normal statistics, office vacancy becomes to a very low point where we can support new construction for traditional office space. A lot of the parking lots that are, quote, holes in the smile, missing teeth, become developable properties. Some of these empty buildings that have been empty for entirely too long change hands and get into the hands of people who are capable of redeveloping them and actually putting life into them, and not just, changing hands is one thing, but actually doing something with those is a different story. So, those are the things that I see changing downtown.
That's great. I'll stick with density. I think by the end of the decade, I'd like to see a skyscraper being built and some big cranes in our downtown. I think that it gives a sense to our community that, hey, big things are happening, right? And maybe if you think about moving out of Albuquerque, maybe you need to stick around for a little while because we got some fun stuff up our sleeve.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Adam and David Silverman were the guests today. I'm Ryan Boetel, and Business Outlook podcasts come out on Monday afternoons, and they're available wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us. You can find this episode and all our podcasts on the Albuquerque Journal website, abqjournal.com, as well as on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. If you enjoy our podcasts, please like and subscribe, and consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Albuquerque Journal to help us continue to bring you more content like this. See the show notes for a discount on a digital subscription. Thank you for supporting the Albuquerque Journal, New Mexico's leading local news source.